Something that we have done as coaches. I became a coach in 2008, and I remember I was always trying to introduce the voice of the system in my one-on-one coaching interventions. And I remember asking my leader, "Do you want to have a conversation with your leader?" Sometimes I had the leader in one session, maybe the HR business partner was present, right? I was trying to bring the voice of the system, and I remember I was creating some survey, like manual surveys, asking the leaders, the system of my leader, I would say, do you think this is a good coaching objective? Do you think this is a good way to work with this client? And I remember I was putting all in Excel, trying to create my own reports, right? But now we have the possibility to do it without effort. We have created, and it's part of a bigger approach, but we have created an instrument that is very simple. It's a series of surveys of in 3 moments of the coaching process. And I like the questions that we have here, right? Because it's important for you to think about it. The first one, how do you and the leader measure the progress of your coaching, right? And that is interesting because I remember when I began selling, I would say, my services as a coach, and I remember the company like asking me, okay, you're going to have a closed door process. Yes, we can have certain visibility about the participation and engagement of the client. Yes, you can facilitate some conversations with the system. Yes, but nothing else when I started to do this journey as a coach, right? So I like this first question because maybe you have some answers to this. How do you and the leader measure the progress of the coaching process, right? And who determines whether the leader is really making progress? Who says that the leader is making progress? Sometimes I remember my clients coming to me saying, I think I'm doing great, right? And of course, me as a coach, I was believing, of course, the leader is doing great. They can bring examples during the coaching process, but I didn't know exactly what was happening out there. And the last question is interesting because it includes, I imagine it has happened to you. Has the organization ever asked you, how do I know if my investment is generating a return, right? And this is a question that I remember dealing with the majority of my first conversations when I was becoming an executive coach, right? So we need to measure progress, and I think we all have experienced these things, right? So I was explaining to you that this consists of 3 surveys. When you are starting, just after having like the assessment, you can have a baseline one, asking the people, what is the goal? What do you want to achieve? What is the performance of this leader around this? What is the current level of performance, right? So, and of course, there is commentaries of the raters, which is interesting. Then imagine that I am doing a 1-year engagement. I do this, I sell this for my CEOs. I have a full program that I always sell that includes, of course, a leadership circle profile, a debrief, a session to create a leadership development plan, a session to talk with the leader around the developmental goals of my coaching, and then I launch polls. And it's a good thing to know, okay, this is the starting point, this is the baseline. Some months later, I continue my coaching process. I can ask again the system, how is this leader advancing? That is the second one that is called the interim pulse. And then I assess the current level of performance. It's a pulse. I'm taking the pulse of how the leader is doing now with the one big thing goal, and a start behavior that is in the creative competencies, and a stop behavior that is in the reactive. And then the final one, when I am asking again, how is the advance? What is the conclusion? What is the performance? And I also ask about leadership effectiveness. So this is one of the things that not everybody knows that we have. And I think it's amazing because it's an instrument that you can feel like you can do the survey from your cell phone. You take just 5 minutes to do this. And at the end, we can create an aggregate report. Imagine you're working with 10 leaders, or we have done projects with Jose Manuel with 100 leaders doing all of this process together at the same time, right? And it's been shaping the culture. Why? Because we have real feedback after a meeting, not only because people is expecting to receive a pulse survey, right? Because we're changing the way we relate with feedback. We show up as a vulnerable leader that can ask for help and support. So this is pause.